Imagination is the spiritual ability or faculty that we have that perceives creative solutions amid seeming setbacks. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about how God is my source and we move beyond limitations. We set intentions and goals. Last week, I talked about the power of possibility, learning to see beyond appearances. Possibilities exist that circumstances have not yet revealed. That's a use of imagination. Today, I want to talk about what happens when we take our inspiration from imagination and begin to move forward with it. Now, you may have noticed what happens is that resistance arises. This happens in small, medium, and large ways, just like everything else in this universe. All the cycles that science teaches us happen on a micro level, a medium, a large level. Everything is somehow or other in circulation, in a cycle. So what happens when possibility meets resistance is the question, because it always does. That's part of the growth process. So we love here at Unity positive thinking. It is a tool that's in our toolbox, and there is a problem though with positive thinking. If we believe that spiritual growth works like this, that we have a vision, believe hard enough, and everything goes my way. Now you can see in that view there's no room for the reality of the resistance that arises. Obstacles appear. People around you may object to whatever it is your vision or project is. The appearance of lack arises. By the way, that's different than lack arising. The appearance of lack may arise. Fear shows up. And many conclude, I must have been wrong. I must be doing something wrong. Maybe this vision is not meant to be. Or the Spirit must have closed the door that I perceived and walked through. But I invite you to consider that you are right in the middle of something wonderful unfolding, and that resistance is part of the process. The first force that arises is that initiating impulse, that I want to create this, I want to do or be or have this or that. This is what we call goal setting, and we approach goal setting with spiritual tools here. The second force that arises is resistance. It's an obstacle, a challenge, a contradiction. It's not bad. It's not evil or anything like that. It's a necessary part of it. My experience has been, when I first learned about this, I like to think of it as the universe asking, are you sure? Because when we start something, we're very sure about it, and then resistance shows up, and it's an opportunity to really look inside and say, am I 100% dedicated to this endeavor? Because if you're 99.9% dedicated, that doubt has enough room to creep in and begin to dismantle your momentum and your energy and your resolve and your faith. Third force that arises is a reconciling force. Its source is imagination as well. The unexpected possibilities that emerge when we refuse to become trapped between the first two. It's that light bulb moment. When you find a way through divine imagination, you see a way, you envision a way. It doesn't make it so one side or the other side wins. We're not trying to butt heads with resistance and use brute force. It is the Spirit's ability to harmonize the seeming things that are at odds. So most of the time we're good at using imagination in the first step. But spiritual imagination goes much further. It asks this. This is the question of imagination when it shows up as the third force. What possibility is trying to emerge because this obstacle exists? What possibility is trying to emerge because this obstacle exists? The obstacle is an opportunity. And imagination is the way that we resolve, find a way, harmonize, and find our way through whatever the resistance is that's showing up. It allows us to perceive a reality that's not visible from either of the first two places. It's a new thing. I'm going to use an example of the resurrection story. I think this shows it very, very clearly. The first force is the master teacher arrives to proclaim the kingdom, love, justice, transformation. And then the second force arises in the form of arrest, right? Physical death, crucifixion. The vision appears to be defeated. And the disciples even run away, seemingly concluding that the story is over. And if we stop there, then the second force wins the day, right? If we give up. And the third force arises, a whole new thing. Nothing to do with the first two, and that is resurrection, not a return to the old life. It's not like the story goes, oh, it was just a mistake and he wasn't actually dead. Well, he's actually dead. It doesn't undo that. It's not simply undoing death. It's something entirely new, a reality that nobody expected, a possibility hidden within the very event that seemed to destroy the vision. It's the ultimate example of the third force arising. I want to ask you during this week to consider, where in your life have you seen these forces arise? What is a story that you know? Because this happens internally, not just in external things, but it happens internally as well. This same pattern is repeated within our own inner experience as it is with outer things like seeking a new job, say. If your goal is to seek a new job and you feel inspired, and then you find out, oh, you have to get this certificate or this license, or you might have to go to this school, and you didn't expect that seeming resistance. You might let that stop you. But if you engage the spirit in you and stay open, say, show me the way that these things are harmonized. Show me the way through this that includes all of it. You'll find a way. If you don't, you won't. Right? What does the wisdom say? Ask and you shall receive. That's absolutely 100% true at all times in the spiritual realm. Doesn't apply so much in the manifest world. Absolutely applies in the spiritual, and you can draw on that. So you see this is an exercise. You ever read a book that says that's an exercise left to the reader. So where is this in the Star Wars story? You'll find it if you look for it. Where is it in the Harry Potter story? You'll find it if you look for it. Where is it in your life right now? Is it showing up in the form of a health challenge, a relationship issue, a financial concern, a career setback? Is it showing up in fear in some way or other? Is it showing up as grief or loss? How is the second force showing up in your life? And we could spend a lot of energy trying to fight that obstacle head on in a brute force manner. And the power of imagination, though, asks a different question. It asks, what third force is looking to emerge here? How is there a way that the Spirit can arise in this that you never thought about? If you only think in terms of the first phase and the second phase, we're missing a very important piece of this. What could that be? That openness that you bring is enough to begin to show you. Right? When you set the intention of being open, you are declaring, whether you realize it or not, you are declaring, I am not defeated. This is just part of the whole thing. I didn't realize that this was happening, so what? You're saying, show me the way through. And what happens when we show up 100% committed to something? When we envision even the possibility of a possibility, what happens is door open where before there were no doors. Seemingly in a blank wall, a door appears that you did not perceive before. Now I want to talk about the kitchen. Because this kitchen project brings layers of this dynamic. The one that's easy to see is what is the inspirational idea? We're going to have a new kitchen. What's the second force that shows up? It costs what? And if you stop there, if we let that win the day, then we're done, of course. So we ask, well, what opportunity is looking to emerge here? How is the Spirit looking to emerge from this opportunity of the resistance that shows up? So that's in the broadest scale, right? It also shows up in each of us, right? We each have our own relationship with this project. I don't know anyone that said, no, that's a terrible idea. We should not get a new kitchen. I'm guessing that a lot of us had that. It costs what? Experience. And the way that could defeat me with my own relationship is that is an overwhelming amount of money. I'm powerless. There's nothing I can do. I guess I better sit and wait for somebody who maybe has a lot of money to do whatever they need to do. Right? But when we set an intention in the universe, what do we say? You got to put feet to your prayers. Right? When you pray, move your feet, goes the old adage. Or as I like to say, when I hold a vision of prosperity in my life, what I don't do is sit on the couch in the lotus position, affirming my good, and then go check the mail each day to see if it's arrived yet. There's a little more to it. This requires my participation. So this kitchen requires your participation. So I think I've got the slides. Let's move. So just to remind you how awesome this is the easy part. Ooh, yes, please. I'll take that. Give me two. Next slide. There's another view. Next slide. You know, it's going to look substantially like this, not exactly like this. Yes, let's stay there for a minute. I'm going to thank Charlotte for this idea. She said, wouldn't it be fun if you had like a menu of options? Like, oh, you could buy a light. You could buy a square foot of floor. You could buy a piece of this or that. And I ran with that yesterday and just brainstormed. Spirit showed me all the things. They're based on real numbers, but don't get too fixated with the numbers. It's based, you ever watch a show that says based on a true story. Well, these numbers are based in reality. Don't get your scientific calculator out and try and figure out exactly how. And so, oh look, you could buy a square foot of floor for $5. You don't have $5? That's okay. You can buy a square inch of island for $2. You can buy a light for $50. The ceiling renewal, square foot of that, $6.75. You probably spend more on that than coffee. I know I do. And then, of course, other things, you know, a whole bunch of cabinets, getting into pricier stuff. The painting, if you felt you wanted to pay for the painting, there's a number to put on that, if that helps you. If you want a linear foot of counter, there's a number for that. Go to the next slide. Or you can buy a piece of the finished kitchen. 1 square inch of the finished kitchen is $1.50. Now tell me you don't have $1.50. I know you do. You could probably afford 2 square inches of the kitchen. can buy a square foot of the whole thing for $207. And by the way, you could buy 10% of it. You could buy 50% of it. You could buy all of it. That's on the menu too. I was joking with Kathleen, we only have 2 of the finished kitchens available. So act now to reserve yours. You can go to the next slide. No, go back. I'm not there yet. The point is that if you, and I know this feeling overwhelmed, this is too big for me. I want to share with you that this community, for this project to be successful, needs spiritual participation. Do not be intimidated by the numbers. One number that we might want to track is how many people have donated, not who gave what, not who gave a little, who gave a lot, or what have you, but how many people said, I want to be a part of this. I'm willing to put in $1, $3, $5, $20, whatever it might be. That's the part where you got to check with the spirit in you. But this project requires momentum. Now, we have brought in a decent chunk of change, I must say, from a very small number of people, concerningly small number of people. This project needs more yeses than that. And it just needs a yes. It doesn't matter what the numbers are on your contribution. I really want you to note that that's true. That's why I have fun with this menu. It's like, oh, I'll buy a square inch of this, a linear foot of that, or whatever it might be. Find something fun that speaks to you. But I encourage you strongly to participate at some level, always checking with the spirit within you what is yours to do. And I don't want you to miss this opportunity. When this kitchen is done, and I affirm it is happening, I want, when you walk in that room, I want you to say, I had something to do with this. Don't diminish your contribution. You know how we can do that. Well, I didn't really do that much. Have you ever watched someone do something amazing and then they start tearing themselves down? Well, it wasn't that good. You know, I might have, overcooked this, or my shoes weren't as shiny as they could have been. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. You just let your light shine in the way that is right and perfect for you. That's all that's required. This biblical story about this, the widow's mite, right? The whole point of that is to show up. Another one that I love is the workers in the vineyard. So real quick recap, because I know you all know that story. Real quick recap. There's a guy running a vineyard, and workers show up at 9 in the morning to work, and some more show up at noon, and some more show up at 3. And at the end of the day, he pays them all exactly the same amount. Imagine how the ones at 9, what are they thinking about the ones that showed up at 3? That ain't right, they're saying. The point of the story is in the realm of the spirit, it does not matter when you got there. It does not matter what the dollar amount is on your gift. It matters that you stepped up and said, I want to be a part of it. You're adding your energy to it. There's nothing to do with dollar amounts. So I'm asking you to do that, and do it today, if you can. We're holding firm on that affirmation. It has a date on it, doesn't it? Doesn't that scare you? Isn't it better to have a goal that says, whenever it could happen? No, we're holding firm to that goal. And there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. The money is not the issue. It's the consciousness. Money follows consciousness. That's why I'm hitting this point so hard. When the consciousness is there, everything that is needed is supplied. Everything. I'm going to share briefly that my mind, the spirit in me, has handed me a very broad vision. So if you think the kitchen's scary, glad you're sitting down. So I don't know if you realize we own this property, this lot here too. And if you're wondering, well, how much, you can't even see that deep into it, right? Because it's wooded. It's almost as much land as this side. Like however far it is from, say, the beginning of the parking lot, you know, where the concrete starts by the street, from that distance to where the trees start is that much again. And it's just as deep. We have a lot of land. And I'm like, and I think that was a very wise decision. I heard the story again, how that came to be. But what's the Spirit is knocking on my head saying, what is this for? And I was like, that's a really good question. The bigger question, of course, is what are we doing here? Why are we here? Why does this community exist? My answer is we're here to let our light shine, to learn how to let our light shine, and then to shine it in the world so brightly that other people notice how bright it is, and they find the light in themselves because they can see it in us. What could one do if money was not an issue? And our vision says the whole Columbia metropolitan area, there are a lot of spiritual people in this area who aren't here on a Sunday morning. What if there was a center or a home or some kind of spiritual home for all of those folks? What might that look like? What is the vision underneath it? Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe there's somebody who's really excellent at chanting, you know, in a spiritual context, a powerful spiritual practice, chanting. Well, wouldn't it be great if they came here and led a workshop or a class or a weekly circle or something like that? This is one little example. So you start to make a list of, oh, what if we had chair yoga, and what if we had some other spiritual practice that someone could lead or teach here? How many people would show up on a Sunday? Well, gosh, this room, we could probably cram 100 in here if we needed to. 80 we could do. I think we might even have 80 chairs right now. 100 we could probably do. If 100 people came here, where are they going to park? That's 50 cars. We've got about 20 spaces out there to my count. You see where this is going? You begin with the vision. Who are we here to serve, and how are we guided to serve them? And then let it grow from there to whatever it needs to be. Why? Because the Spirit provides for every good and right purpose when there are dedicated people there for it. So now I'll go back down to the kitchen. No, I'm gonna make one final point. Say you envision things like one thing that came to me, and these are just little stuff to throw on the brainstorm board. Would it be cool if there was a big old curved driveway that came right past the front of the building? You could drop folks off. Maybe it was covered. It's covered so the car would go under it. You seen that in out of the rain? Wouldn't that be nice? And wouldn't it be nice if there was enough parking here to attract the number of people that we are envisioning? That seems important, right? Wouldn't it be cool if this, so there's kind of already like a meditation garden going there, but what if it was like done completely properly, right? All weeds gone and landscaped however it is that the Spirit is calling for it to be. That's a place that people who don't even come to church here and never would might come and sit and contemplate, right? There's enough, that's a park over there. Just for fun, I did a top-down view of it to get some sense of what's going on. And then I made a circle on mine, like a 50-foot diameter labyrinth. To me, a 50-foot labyrinth is pretty big. It almost disappears. You drop it in the middle of that piece of property, it ain't nothing. And I thought, wow, look at the abundance that's right here. What could we do if we set our minds to it? And you say, well, yes, that's going to cost more than a kitchen, right? Let's just acknowledge that. We don't pretend that money's not an issue. We just let it serve us. We don't serve money. Money serves us. We serve God, right? So it's like, man, if we just like came up with all the most awesomest, cool stuff we could think of, that might cost what? Somebody knows anything about construction, landscaping? Throw me a number. Nobody knows?
$500,000?
$500,000. Yeah, easy $500,000, maybe $1 million. Right? The Spirit will provide that. I'm unconcerned about that. If the consciousness is there, the resources show up. If consciousness is not actually really dedicated, it's not going to work. Right? It's not going to work. So let your awareness expand to include whatever. Have you create your own vision of that. What might that look like? Just as an exercise of expansive thinking. Allow the Spirit to be your guide there. And then look at the kitchen. Kitchen. That kitchen's done. It's already done. I know it's done. We got work to do still. Don't just sit there like, all right, show me that kitchen. As I said, we all have a part, consciousness, to raise our consciousness, and that kitchen will appear as we have envisioned it. But let that be a part of a much bigger vision. And then each of us individually, you can let your light shine everywhere you go. You don't have to spend any money. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to landscape anything. You don't have to build any buildings. Right? You just let your light shine wherever you go. The store, the grocery store. I told you about my friend Jesse in the Southwest. He's an old guy. He has trouble getting around, so he rides one of those wheeled carts. And he'll go to somebody who's tall and say to them, I really look up to you. Which is the goofiest dad joke ever, right? But that person just smile. When you say that from your spirit, it just made somebody's day. And he used to also like to say, like if someone bumped into his cart, and they, of course, they're profusely sorry. We're actually very polite with each other in person, right? It's online where we go off the rails. Somebody bumped into his cart and say, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. He'd say, that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. And then he would smile and they would smile. It's because it's ridiculous, right? That is a way that he and I started calling it his Walmart ministry. He'd go to Walmart just to have those interactions. He didn't need anything there. He just walked around being the light. And it worked. So that didn't cost him anything, right? All you got to do is show up at Walmart and let your light shine. Let your light shine. So that's my invitation, is do not let second force keep you down in any way, shape, or form. Recognize that through the power of imagination, like this imaginative menu, thank you again, Charlotte, for that idea, help find a way through it, a harmonizing way, not a brute force way. God's power is not coercive. It's not like humans think of power as you better, because I'm stronger than you, so you better. That's human point of view. That's a very limited point of view. The Spirit's power is persuasive over time. What do you think's stronger, steel or water? Put the steel in the water and wait. Guess who prevails? The water does. The steel's going to rust into nothing. God has time on God's side. Right? So let the Spirit flow in you the way the Spirit does. Know that you have that power in you as well. And invite you to be open to the third force that says, show me how. What is my way forward here in the face of this seemingly overwhelming expense? Gosh, I don't have anything. I'm way too small for that. I guess I just better sit on the sideline and let other people do it. Don't do that. Here's what I can do, and then do it. And watch the change in you when you do that. Now we can go to the next slide. We'll share our affirmation together. I'll read it, and then we can read it together. I trust the creative power of God to illuminate the way and transform any challenge. Together? I trust the creative power of God to illuminate the way and transform any challenge.